Sometime in the last years of her life, Diana, Princess of Wales, sat down and wrote out what was to happen to her jewelry. The instruction survives in her own words. She asked that all of it be held in the share belonging to her sons, so that their wives might, in due course, have it or use it. It is a strange and tender sentence, written by a woman of 36 who had no reason yet to think the document would matter for decades. She left 2 boys. One of them would one day be king in London. The other would build a life 4,000 miles away on the coast of California. And if you want to understand what actually became of this family, you can read almost the whole of it in Where the Jewels Came to Rest. There is a version of this story that circulates endlessly online, full of raids and frozen accounts, and stolen heirlooms spirited out of the country through shell companies. None of that is real. The truth is quieter, better documented, and in the end, a great deal sadder. There was no theft. There was a will, a letter of wishes, and a single quiet exchange between 2 brothers. What follows is what the record actually shows. Begin with the most famous ring in the world. When Charles proposed in the early weeks of 1981, Diana was offered a selection from Gerard, then the crown jeweler, and she chose a large oval Ceylon sapphire ringed by 14 diamonds and set in white gold. The choice raised eyebrows inside the family for a reason that now seems almost quaint. The ring was not a bespoke commission. It had come straight from the Gerard catalog, which meant that in theory, anyone walking in off the street with enough money could have bought that very same one. To some at the palace, that was close to scandalous. To Diana, it plainly did not matter. She wore it at the announcement of her engagement on the 24th of February, 1981, and she went on wearing it long after the marriage had collapsed, and it became, against all the rules of exclusivity, the single most recognizable piece of jewelry of her age. When she died in the late summer of 1997, that ring did not go to the woman who wears it today. By the account of her butler, who was there when her sons came to choose keepsakes from her rooms at Kensington Palace, it was the younger boy who reached for the engagement ring. Harry, then 12, took it as the thing he remembered. William chose instead a gold Cartier tank watch, the one he recalled his mother wearing, keeping the time. For more than a decade, that was how it stood. The ring belonged to Harry, and the watch belonged to William, and the world knew nothing of either arrangement. Then, in 2010, William prepared to propose to Catherine Middleton, and the brothers made a quiet trade. Harry gave up the ring so that it could go on the finger of the woman who would one day be queen, and took the Cartier watch in its place. William carried the sapphire to Kenya and proposed with it on holiday that autumn. And when the engagement was announced on the 16th of November 2010, the ring the whole world thought it had lost reappeared on a new hand. In the television interview that followed, William said plainly why he had done it. It was his way, he explained, of making sure his mother did not miss the day, of keeping her close to the moment and to the marriage. The ring has stayed there ever since. Catherine has worn it for 15 years now, occasionally setting it aside for plainer everyday bands during the hardest stretches. During her illness in 2024, when she stepped back from public life for cancer treatment, William gave her a new band set with 19 diamonds and 19 sapphires to wear beside it, a private echo of the stone his mother had chosen. But the sapphire remains exactly where Diana's letter intended it to be, on the hand of a son's wife, which leaves the watch, and the watch is where this story crosses an ocean. The gold Cartier tank that William first chose did not stay with him. In the same exchange that sent the ring to Catherine, the watch passed to Harry, and Harry in time gave it to Meghan. Today, that timepiece, the one William picked precisely because he remembered it on his mother's wrist, is worn by the Duchess of Sussex in Montecito. There is the real version of the so-called Montecito connection that the conspiracy videos work so hard to make sinister. Diana's jewels genuinely did travel to California. They traveled there in the ordinary way, carried by a grieving son who wanted his wife to wear his mother's things, exactly as his mother had asked. The watch was not the only piece to make that journey, and the others are worth knowing, because each one was a gift from Harry, and each one came from Diana's own personal collection, rather than from any vault of the crown. When Harry designed Meghan's engagement ring, he had 2 small diamonds taken from a piece of his mother's and set into the band on either side of the central stone, a diamond he had chosen from Botswana, a country that had come to mean a great deal to the two of them, so that Diana would, as he put it, be there with them. When the couple left their wedding on the 19th of May 2018, and Meghan changed for the evening reception, she wore on her right hand an emerald-cut aquamarine ring in heavy yellow gold. That ring had been made for Diana by Asprey in the middle of the 1990s, built around a stone she had been given by a close friend, and she had taken to wearing it in the last year of her life, after the divorce. It came with a matching bracelet. None of it was crown property. All of it was hers to leave, and she left it to her sons, and one son gave it to his wife. That is the whole of the mystery. It helps, here, to understand how royal jewels actually work, because the confusion the rumors feed on lives in the gap between three different things. There are the crown jewels proper, the regalia of coronation, which belong to the nation and to the office, and are never anyone's to keep. There is the royal collection, the vast inherited trove of tiaras and necklaces and brooches that passes from sovereign to sovereign, held in trust, lent out and called back as the family requires. And then there is the genuinely private property of an individual royal, the gifts and the purchases that are theirs alone, to wear, to keep, and to leave in a will. Almost every quarrel about Diana's jewelry is really a failure to tell these three apart. Now turn to the tiaras, because the tiaras are where the public most often gets the story wrong, and where the truth cuts closest to the bone. The diadem most people picture on Diana's head is the one of diamonds and pearls that she wore again and again, the one she paired with the white-beaded Catherine Walker gown in Hong Kong in 1989 that the press christened her Elvis dress. That is the Cambridge lover's knot, sometimes called Queen Mary's lover's knot, and here is the detail that the rumors always omit. It was never Diana's. Gerard made it for Queen Mary in 1913. It passed to Queen Elizabeth II in 1953, and in 1981 the Queen loaned it to Diana as a wedding gift. A loan, not a gift outright. Diana wore it constantly, despite complaining that it was so heavy it gave her headaches, and it became so bound up with her image that most people assumed it was hers by right. It was not. When the marriage ended in 1996, Diana was allowed to keep the jewelry she had been given, but the lover's knot had only ever been lent, and so it went back to the Queen and back into the safe beneath Buckingham Palace. It vanished from public view entirely. No one saw it for 19 years, and then, in Twitter at 15, it appeared again, on the head of the new Duchess of Cambridge, and it has since become Catherine's signature piece for state banquets and diplomatic receptions. The same jewels, the same knots of pearl, worn now by the woman who married Diana's elder son. So when people ask, in dark tones, what happened to that tiara, the honest answer is that nothing happened to it at all. It was a crown jewel before Diana. It was a crown jewel during Diana, and it is a crown jewel still. It was only ever passing through her hands, as it now passes through Catherine's, on its way down the long table of the monarchy. The tiara that truly belonged to Diana tells the opposite story, and it is, in its way, the most moving piece in this whole account. On her wedding day, the 29th of July, 1981, Diana did not wear a crown tiara at all. She could have. The lover's knot was already hers to borrow. Instead, she chose the Spencer Tiara, a garland of diamonds in scrolls and stars, and trumpet-shaped flowers that had been remodeled by Gerard in 1937 for her own grandmother, built around still older pieces from her family's collection. It was loaned to her not by the palace, but by her father, the 8th Earl Spencer, and she wore it as a deliberate act of allegiance to the family she came from, rather than the one she was marrying into. Both her sisters had worn it at their own weddings before her. She wore it for years afterward too, at white tie dinners and on tours from Australia to South Korea, often preferring its lighter weight to the crown's grander pieces. That tiara never entered the royal collection, and it never will. It was a Spencer heirloom, and after Diana died it returned to Althorp, the family estate where she is buried, and it remains there now in the care of her brother, the 9th Earl Spencer. It has been worn since by a Spencer niece, Celia McCorquodale, at her own wedding in 2018, and in the summer of 2022, it went on public display in London for the first time in over half a century, turning slowly behind glass at Sotheby's. Her brother has recalled that it gave Diana a headache on the wedding day itself, so unused was she to the weight of it. In time, it will pass not to either of Diana's granddaughters, not to Princess Charlotte, however much the internet wishes otherwise, but down the male line of the earldom to her nephew. Catherine did not wear it. Meghan did not wear it. They could not, because it was never the crown's to offer. The single most famous tiara Diana ever owned, the one she wore to become a princess, will never touch a royal head again. It stays with her own blood, in the house where she lies. If the engagement ring is the most famous of her jewels, the sapphires are the most quietly persistent, and they have traveled the same road as the ring. On her wedding day, Diana was given a suite of sapphires by King Fahd of Saudi Arabia, a man she had never met. Made by Asprey to match the great sapphire on her finger, it ran to a necklace, a pair of earrings with drops that could be added or removed, a bracelet, and a watch, and Diana wore it across years of royal tours in every configuration she could invent. At one point, she had the watch itself reworked into a choker, backed with blue velvet ribbon, and wore it sometimes across her forehead. The suite was a gift, given to her and hers to keep, and so, like the ring, it went to her sons, and on to a son's wife. Catherine wears it now, though you would have to look closely to know it. She has pared the earrings down from their original clusters to a single sapphire drop, and the remaining stones appear to have been reset into a slim pendant she first wore in 2020 to receive the President of Ukraine at Buckingham Palace. She has worn the drop earrings to Trooping the Color, to a state visit by the President of South Korea in 2023, and to the launch of a warship in the spring of 2025. They sit, every time, beside Diana's sapphire engagement ring on her hand, two halves of the same inheritance, reassembled on a new wearer. The emeralds tell the other story again, the one the rumors refuse to hear, and they tell it even more sharply than the tiara did. There is a famous photograph of Diana in Melbourne on the 31st of October 1985, in a green satin gown, wearing an Art Deco emerald and diamond choker not around her neck but across her forehead like a band. It caused a sensation, and by most accounts it irritated the Queen, and the truth of how it happened is almost comic. Rushing to dress for a gala dinner dance at the Southern Cross Hotel, sunburnt and short of time, Diana tried to pull the choker on over her head rather than wait for it to be clasped, found it would not pass the bridge of her nose, and a member of her party suggested she simply wear it where it had stuck. That choker was one of her most photographed pieces, worn from her wedding year until the very last months of her life. And yet it was never hers either. It had come down from Queen Mary, it belonged to the royal collection, and the Queen had only given Diana the use of it. After Diana died, the emerald choker went straight back into the collection, where it has been displayed since among Queen Mary's other emeralds, and where Catherine, wearing matching emerald earrings, drew on its memory at the Earthshot Awards in Boston in December of 2022. Another piece the world thinks of as Diana's. Another piece that was only ever the crown's, passing through. The diamonds, like the watch, went west. On her wrist in those years, Diana often stacked a plain diamond tennis bracelet beside an emerald and diamond band that Charles had given her as a wedding present. That tennis bracelet now belongs to Meghan, who wears it often, and a pair of its diamonds, the two that Harry had reset, sit in her engagement ring. So when people speak darkly of Diana's jewels in California, this is the literal truth of it. Her watch keeps time there, her aquamarine catches the light there, and two small diamonds that once circled her wrist are now fixed in the ring her younger son designed, so that on every day of his marriage, a part of his mother is on his wife's hand. Nothing about it was hidden, and nothing about it was taken. It was a son honoring a letter. Even the pearls follow the pattern. Among the simplest pieces Catherine has worn are a pair of pearl earrings given to Diana by the jeweler Collingwood as a wedding gift, paired sometimes with a 4-strand pearl choker that Diana also wore. They are not grand stones. They are not the sort of thing the conspiracy videos can build a fortune around. They are exactly the kind of small, personal, often worn jewel that a mother might picture when she writes that her son's wives should one day use her things. Diana's diamond and pearl drop earrings, another favorite, now appear on Catherine at the grandest occasions, worn with the lover's knot at a state banquet in November of 2022. She wore Diana's pearl earrings again at the commemorations marking 80 years since victory in Europe in May of 2025, in front of the cameras, on a day of national memory, which is precisely the sort of moment Diana seems to have imagined. The verb she chose, remember, was use. Not lock away, not hide, use. There is one suite, though, that did not follow her letter, and it is the saddest of them all, because she never lived to own it. In the spring of 1997, in the last months of her life, Gerard set to work on a necklace and a matching pair of earrings, made of diamonds and 7 great South Sea pearls, designed with Diana's own input, for she had a particular love of that kind of pearl. By some accounts, the man who shared her final summer, Dodi Fayed, had ordered the set as a gift for her. On the 3rd of June, 1997, she wore the necklace to a performance of Swan Lake by the English National Ballet at the Royal Albert Hall, in a pale blue gown, and the photographs traveled the world. It was among the very last public appearances of her life. The earrings were not yet finished, so she handed the necklace back to Gerard for the pair to be completed, and she never saw either piece again. She was killed in Paris before the summer was out, and here is the cruel technicality of it. Because she had never bought the suite, and because she now stood outside the royal family and its protocols, the jewels had no owner at all when she died. They could not pass to her sons, for they had never been hers to leave. 2 years later, her family permitted Gerard to sell the set, with part of the proceeds going to the campaign against landmines that had taken the last energies of her life. It went first to an English lord whose wife had been at school with Diana and found, in the end, that she could never bring herself to wear it. From there it passed to a businessman in Texas, and later to a family in Ukraine, drifting further and further from the woman it was made for. Of all her jewels, the one shaped most closely to her own taste is the only one that belongs today to a stranger. She is not the only piece of her to surface in unexpected hands. A small diamond cross she liked to wear, the Atala cross, went under the hammer in 2023 and was bought by the American celebrity Kim Kardashian, though that one too had only ever been lent to Diana, never owned by her. The pattern holds even there. What was truly hers went to her children. What was borrowed went elsewhere. There is a quiet symmetry in all of this that no scriptwriter could improve. The personal jewels, the ones that were truly hers, did exactly as she asked. The ring went to one son and on to his wife, and it stayed in London on the hand that will one day belong to a queen. The sapphires and the pearls followed it there. The watch and the aquamarine and her own loose diamonds went to the other son and on to his wife, and they left for California. The borrowed pieces, the lover's knot and the emerald choker, went back to the crown that had only ever lent them, and reappeared, years later, exactly where the line of succession runs. And the tiara that was genuinely, privately hers withdrew from royal life altogether, back to the family that had it first. Love, division, duty, and inheritance, all of it written in stones. And this is the part that gives the lie to the whole industry of invented scandal that has grown up around this woman's jewelry box. The fantasy requires a vault of stolen treasure and a villain holding the key. The reality is that almost every piece is accounted for, in plain sight, on the wrists and the ears and the hands of the 2 women who married her sons. What people imagine was taken from Diana was, in nearly every case, never personally hers to begin with. It was the property of the crown, lent down the generations, worn by the queen before her and worn by royal women after her, the lover's knot and the emerald choker the clearest examples of all. When a later royal wears one of those pieces, it is not a theft from Diana. It is the monarchy doing what it has always done, passing its jewels from one set of hands to the next. It is why the sight of Queen Camilla, in some grand historic tiara, sets the rumor mills spinning, and why they are wrong to spin. The pieces she reaches for most often did not come from Diana, and never had anything to do with her. Her favorite diadem is the Greville tiara, a honeycomb of diamonds that entered the royal family in 1942, in a bequest of some 60 pieces left to the Queen Mother by a society hostess named Margaret Greville, and worn by the Queen Mother for half a century before Camilla was ever a duchess. The emerald tiara that Camilla brought out at a reception in 2025, built around a single stone of more than 90 carats, came down that very same line. None of it ever passed through Diana's hands at all. What a queen consort wears on a state night belongs to the royal collection, the property of the institution itself, the same category as the lover's knot and the emerald choker that Diana, too, only ever borrowed. None of it was Diana's to lose, which means none of it could ever have been taken from her. The genuinely personal jewels did not disappear into any safe. They went exactly where her letter sent them. So the question that gets asked in those breathless videos, who took Diana's jewels and where are they hidden, has a dull and documented answer. No one took them. Nothing is hidden. They are being worn, in London and in Montecito, by the wives of the two boys who chose them from her rooms on the worst day of their lives. What remains is not a mystery, but a kind of map. Follow the sapphire, and you arrive at a future queen. Follow the watch and the aquamarine and the loose diamonds, and you arrive at a house on the Pacific. Follow the borrowed tiara and the borrowed emeralds, and you arrive back at the crown, glittering on at the state banquets as though Diana had only just set them down. And follow the Spencer Tiara, the only one that was ever truly hers, and you arrive at a grave at Althorp and a family that keeps its own. A mother left a short letter asking that her things be used by the women her sons would love. 2 decades on, against every rumor to the contrary, that is the one wish of hers that came true exactly as she wrote it. Tell me in the comments which detail changed the way you see this story. I read every single comment. Subscribe to the Royal Thread. Every story is connected, and the next thread is already being pulled. Sometime in the last years of her life, Diana, Princess of